Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Donato Montanari, and I run the Machine Vision business unit at Zebra. And in Zebra, we've been in Machine Vision for not so long. And one of the advantages when you're in something not so long is that you can really start thinking ahead of the pack. You have nothing anchoring you down, right? And for us, thinking ahead of the pack is being very much related to deep learning and AI. And I've been in the machine vision business for a very, very long time. And one thing that I've always been excited about is AI. And one thing that has not really worked very well in machine vision has been AI. We as an industry have been very late in AI. And if we ask ourselves, is AI working in the machine vision context? Is deep learning working in terms of doing quality control? The answer is, I don't really know. There are definitely a lot of applications that we do today with deep learning and with AI, particularly in surface inspection, particularly in looking at some kind of foods. There are really a lot of things that we can do today and deploy successfully with deep learning and AI that we were not doing a few years ago. But in Zebra, we are somehow obsessed with customers and voice of the customer. So what we did, we actually went out and organized a very structured survey of the world of manufacturing. And we asked the questions, are manufacturers actually using AI, and are they deploying successfully AI? And it's a kind of an interesting result. And here are two examples, two different countries, UK on the one hand and Germany on the others. And you may say that Germany is very traditional, very conservative, and UK is less traditional and less conservative. But what is interesting is that if you look at the UK, 25% of the people say, I don't really care too much about AI. I don't see how that's going to help me, right? And you can relate to that. If you're doing metrology, if you're measuring from A to B, you don't really need AI, right? 40% of the people in the UK, they are actually very satisfied on how AI works. If you look at Germany, it's kind of the opposite. You're 35% of the people in manufacturing who say, no, really, I don't see why I should move to AI. And you have a 25% who's actually very happy with AI. But what is interesting is that in both of these sort of extremes, you have 20% who are saying, yes, I'm using AI, it's great, but it could be better, right? I tried it, yes, I can do this, I can do that, but hey, after a while, managing all those models and having 7 factories with 22 models, and I don't know which one runs on which machine, it's challenging. So really, how can we do better with AI? What are the challenges that if you are implementing AI for a living, you're in a factory environment, you're facing every day, right? A lot has to do with how you collect the data, how you train the model, and ultimately how you do the annotation and managing all of these models. And it's not as simple as it looks like. There is a lot of science related on sampling the data, having balanced train sets, and applying those models and deploying them consistently. And today, everyone does it in a little bit of a different way. Even within a large organization, you have different centers and different development teams that are doing it a little bit differently for their specific use case. So we think that the solution for this problem, it really is cloud training. And what we mean by cloud is basically a bunch of servers that are physically located somewhere within the organization or outside of the organizations, and where everything runs on those servers. Where if I were to break down what deploying a model consists of, which are the blocks up there, they are all running on the same servers. They're all running on the same cloud. So it's a single repository of your data where several different teams can collaborate and develop a model together. They can revision a model together. They can decide where to deploy it, how to maintain it, and how to update it. And this concept of collaboration, it's very, very important, particularly as the organization scales and particularly as the organization is large. Right? If you have one line and one model and that's all you do, is one thing. But if you have several factories, several lines, thousands of SKUs, then the level of complexity is very, very high. And try to manage that locally is probably not a very good idea. Now, obviously, the number one question when you start talking about the cloud is the security. And in machine vision, we are a little bit paranoid about this. But in other industries, they've actually solved the problem. And there are companies that specialize in that. And again, building an ecosystem certified for that is a very important first step. Talking about encryption during uploads, encryption for storage, private cloud instances, all of these things that in our world, they seem very complicated. Actually, they're not. Some other people have figured it out. We just have to take that and deploy it in our industry. And by doing that, we have the infrastructure, and with the infrastructure, we can build. So, is that something that every company may want to do themselves? Probably not. Probably, using an established ecosystem, using an expert who has put this together is a much better way to approach it. Because again, it's not exactly easy. So if we look at really what this cloud training is all about, is about saving images in a repository and be able to annotate them. Annotating these images for machine vision is a little bit different than annotating images in other applications. If we look at for instance, autonomous vehicle, where there's a lot of AI, right? Well, it's very easy to say, hey, here is a tree, here is a pedestrian. You don't really need a lot of accuracy. But when you're annotating a cogwheel or a very specific, precise piece of machinery, it's essential that you have the tools to go and really draw around that, almost with millimeter or micron accuracy. And having those tools is very, very important. And the more accurate this annotation is, and the better your model is going to work. Annotations are not necessarily part of the image. They are part of how the process works. And so how do you move annotations around, like what formats you support, like JSON and so on, is also very, very important. This is, again, sort of an example of how this physically look. This is a connector, and you can see on the one side there is a missing cable. And again, this is how we annotate it. The other important thing is you annotate for what? And it really depends on which models you want to train on the network. And there are all sorts of different models that are coming into the industry, and having all of them as your disposal as tools is very, very important, right? Because some things you do with segmentation, some things you do with anomaly detection, and eventually you want to be able to classify. And then, last but not least, you have to be able to test and validate your model, which again is something that if you have an environment like the cloud to be able to do it, and when you have several stakeholders be able to participate in the same validation, in the same model development, then the model is much more robust and can be deployed in several different facilities instead of having every facility deploying their own model. And finally, you have to put this on an edge, right? It has to run somewhere. The inference typically in manufacturing doesn't run on the cloud. And so having the ability to choose your hardware and having the ability of being hardware agnostic and choosing the best hardware for the best model is very, very important. Right. So we talked about the cloud, the infrastructure, the product, but the most important thing when you put things together is actually the team, right? And you need to be able that having different team functions and different skill set to participate to this. And so your cloud infrastructure need to be able to manage this. Need to understand, who are the people who can annotate, who are the people who can actually change the algorithms, who are the people who can deploy the algorithms. So having these permissions, having this system already in place is very, very important. So this is what we do at Zebra, and we will be very happy to go more in detail. We are somewhere over there. I think we have the biggest booth in the event, just not to brag, but I think it's actually a true statement. So please come see us. Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Any questions for Donato? I have a question.
You always have a question.
Yeah, always. So human beings are annotating these things. So is there a future where the annotations will also be done by the AI and the human beings will only be saying, yeah, you've done a right job and you've done a wrong job here? And from there on, another learning cycle is starting?
I don't know. That's a different question. I think what you'll see is AI being deployed to help the annotators.
Yes.
And that's something we're working on right now, where if I annotate one image, right, and I find this very little detail, and then the next image pops up, and it was exactly like the previous one,
yes.
AI can tell me, hey, it's the same as,
yes.
Do you really want to annotate it again? Or I'm just going to say it's the same, right?
Auto, yes.
So I do see a lot of AI or generative AI being used to help the annotators, but in quality control at the end of the day, there is a lot of knowledge in the quality engineer who can look at things like, no, this is not, right? And that knowledge, I think, is very hard for a machine to really master. One other way where I think AI could be helpful is actually in digital twins, right? So if I have a CAD model and I build the neural network on the CAD model, and then I use anomaly detection, I think that's also very, very powerful. I think that it's definitely an area where today there is a lot of research going on.
Perfect. Thank you.
Right.
That was
Thank
my
you.
only question.